Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this next EduSummit presentation session on utilising the use of technology to support all learners, ensuring that no learners are left behind. My name is Lisa Snuggs, and I work in the marketing team here at RM. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by James Tebworth, Business Development Manager at RM, and a whole crew from the Forest Federation School. And we're going to have a special guest joining them shortly as well. Some of you will recognise James. He's been around the business for some time, around 22 years, I believe, James. I know you don't look old enough. In a variety of roles, development and support, account management, one of our resident RM seminar presenters also. So some of you may have seen James at one of those events in the past. I'm going to let James introduce the team from Forest Federation in a tick, but they've been on such a journey over the last year, which is what we're going to hear all about today, and how their approach to ICT has really impacted teaching and learning across the Forest Federation. This is a discussion session, and we really want to hear your thoughts and have you engage with us throughout the session. So use the chat, share your opinions as we're talking, share your questions, and we will try to answer those as we go. Any that we don't manage to get to, we'll pick up at the end. That's it from me. I'm going to hand over to James now, who's going to introduce the team at Forest Federation. Enjoy this session.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Before I introduce the team, I thought it would be quite good just to give a bit of background to RM and the Forest Federation. So the story really dates back to March 2020, if you can clock yourselves back to then. And at RM, we had contact from Forest Federation, who were looking really for some advice and some help in an IT sort of supplier and a bit of vision as well. A bit more about the Forest Federation themselves. They're four lovely schools based in the Northampton area, near the Silverstone track. I'm afraid I have no sense of geography, but I know where the Formula One tracks in the country are. And if you're very lucky and you're on a social distance lunch, you can even hear some of the cars outside, which is fantastic for some at least. I think the real thing was the schools themselves were with technology where they had the normal client server model. Things were around 8 to 9 years old. They were working, but they were starting to hinder the use for the students, for the teachers and for the staff as well. And I think Eliza and the team that we're just about to introduce in a minute knew there was something better out there, and that's what they were doing. They were looking to try and find that. So they contacted us. The timing for RM couldn't have been better, to be honest. We ourselves had reached a point where we thought that certainly technology in terms of Microsoft's Office 365 and Intune had matured enough that really that was going to give some sort of features and benefits to school, but more importantly, to keep that sort of balance in terms of costs as well. So we embarked on an exercise together to talk about the needs and to try and fine tune a service. And luckily that sort of journey kind of went from there, which is where we'll start to explore a bit later on today. But before we get started, I just wanted to, well, first of all, thank the team, because of course, live in lessons and everything else going on in the schools. So do forgive us if anybody has to turn their video off. It's just fact of school life. But if I introduce people, so first of all, we're very lucky to be joined by Eliza Hollis, who is the head of all four schools at the Forest Federation. We also have Sharon Townsend, who is the business manager of the Federation as well. We've got Kelly Leah, who is class 2 teacher at Stoke Bruin, one of the schools at the Federation. And also Dan Lister is joining us here, who is the chair of governors as well. And quite rightly, as Lisa alluded to as well, we have a star performer that will be turning up a bit later on to help us out, but we'll save that for later on. We had a bit of a chat between ourselves. We decided to go for a bit of a free form type thing in terms of questions and answers. And as we said, we hope that you get involved as well and just send in any questions you've got as we go through the various content. But I'll chuck out the first question. mainly aimed at Eliza, but if anybody else also wants to chip in. So this is worth 20 points, eyes down and ready. So in your opinion, what role does ICT play in primary schools, and has that changed before and after you've kind of taken on this journey, would you say?
Thank you, James. I mean, for us, basically, ICT is huge in primary schools. You know, it is the tool for teachers to develop those basic skills in children. The journey that we have been on over this last year has been enormous for my teachers. I would say where we were a year ago to now, it is fully embedded in everything that we do. It's helped us to think creatively about teaching. It's made us think about those things that need to be taught and those things that need to be learnt. We've really to reevaluate our curriculum and how we use ICT to its full advantage. It's been quite a revolution this year, I have to say. It's enriched us in so many ways. And coming back after lockdown, I see it even more so in the classrooms now with the way the children are constantly using the ICT to support their learning. So I think the journey that we're on is absolutely huge.
Perfect, brilliant, thank you. And that you just said a couple of things that were just really interesting to me. One is kind of like a message I'm trying to get out there, I think, with the DFE scheme and some of the bits that we've had, that it's kind of like some of these tools and features, they're not just for lockdown, they can be used and they can be sort of beneficial after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started embedding things in. We had the first lockdown and we were just having the discussions. Then we went into the second lockdown and we'd literally just had the training on the use of Microsoft and the Teams. So for the teachers, it was a huge learning curve, because not only did they have to teach themselves and use it in this second lockdown, but they had to then upskill the children and also the parents. However, since the children have come back, what I'm seeing is all of those features that they were using on the Microsoft platform and the RM Unified platform, they're now using, and it's been embedded in the classroom as we speak. So they've taken those skills and now they're using them in their everyday schooling, which 6 months ago they weren't doing.
That's huge. That's brilliant. And we talk a lot about the cloud, and certainly what I was aware when yourself and Dan reached out to RM, I think you were quite clear at that point. You knew the cloud was the route that you wanted to take, and what was it that made you aware or want to look at the cloud? You know, I know it's a bit generic, but that sort of thing.
I think the thing for me is, you know, I was spending my time, as well as Sharon, traveling around 4 different schools. You know, we have 4 servers in the schools that were aged. We didn't have the capacity that we wanted. I was using iPads, I was using laptops, I was carrying around a hard drive. You know, I didn't have accessibility to all of the things that I needed. And what I needed was one place, all of the equipment, all my hardware, everything in one place, so that I can access things from site to site to site. So we started off with a blank canvas of thinking, right, what do we need in our schools? What will make our schools more efficient, not just at my level or within the business side of it, but also with the teachers and with the children. Because although we are very small schools, I like to think one school, full step. So we wanted something that would enable our children to collaborate. There's a lot of feedback. So is that my microphone?
Oh, I'm not sure. Let me mute.
So we started Microsoft Teams cloud is used very much in business. We dabbled with Google and we started using the Google Drive, but we weren't using it effectively. So we had these conversations, and Dan was at the real forefront of helping us drive that forward from his business expertise. I think you'll agree with me, Dan.
Yes, absolutely. I think for us as well with the cloud, it was about removing all of the servers on site. Yeah, as small primary schools, and the amount of technology that needs specialist management from on site as well to minimise the amount of visits that we have to have, or the risk there in terms of having servers on site. As small schools, we don't have the luxury, maybe that some high schools have, or bigger primaries, being able to have a ICT manager on site permanently. So we're very reliant on people coming in and looking after those servers, or they're just sat in a corner, they're 10 years old, nobody's quite sure what's on them, nobody quite knows what they do or looked at them since they were put in. And it's about removing all of that risk. Okay, we put some more risk in terms of broadband or fiber lines and things like that. But as a school, we have that anyway, because as technology becomes more embedded, we become more reliant on it as it is. Lots of lessons are, there's lots of curriculum enrichment done by the internet, and people are using it anyway. So it wasn't seen as much of a risk as losing a server or having that part of on-site infrastructure. So for us as well, it was getting rid of all of that, clearing out, starting again, and doing something that was could be expanded. If more schools join the federation, or we merged with another set of schools, it was easily to be rolled out as a platform into other sites effectively.
And that's quite intriguing, because that was one question that I wanted to get out, which is something that I think when I speak to a lot of primary schools, especially, you kind of alluded to yourself, they don't have the funds or the ability for that sort of network manager role, or they have ICT gurus in terms of teaching staff or somebody within the school, but not that regular support. And so a lot of them will have the sort of weekly, the bi-weekly, or the monthly visits from someone. There might be the green book with the list of bits, or however that comes. But certainly one of the features or the step change that you made was to remove those visits and to rely on more sort of dial-in and that side of support. Really and honestly, how's that actually been? Have you noticed a difference with that, or?
Totally, completely transformed it. No longer do we have to wait now a week or 2 weeks until our IT engineers are able to come in. We're able to dial up straight away. All teachers have access to the RM support. They're able to log the call there and then. They can remote it, and most of the things they can do remotely. The odd occasion where we've needed an engineer out, RM have sent them out on the next day. So actually, it's taken away that time where laptop and equipment are sitting there for over a week while we wait for somebody to come in. So that has just enabled us to use all of our laptops for all of the children. So that in itself has been revolutionary, I have to say.
I think as well that comes down to equipment. I think previously, when we was in the situation we was in before, all of our equipment was old, it was limping. So we was paying for a service where we was having a technician in, basically trying to troubleshoot problems, which was down to the systems and services that we had in place being old anyway. I think that's a big point on that, isn't it?
And also they were arranged, weren't they? So we didn't just have we didn't even have the same types of laptops. We had Chromebooks, we had iPads, and they weren't even the same,
And I think that was the problem. We did not have a strategic plan for IT. If one laptop broke, it was like, right, replace it with another. We felt that we were spending money, but actually not spending it wisely. So we needed to sit down with a blank page and say, right, is it we want to look like in our schools, and how will we best then go to do that? That was the vision that we started with, and then we spoke to yourselves about, okay, can you make this a reality?
And that was a vision that was started well before the pandemic as well, wasn't it? Because the timeline of this seems like it's very knee-jerk because of pandemic and everything else starts in March 2020. This was a process we'd started, 18 months before, of trying to understand and really get under the skin of what we needed, what we wanted, how many laptops we wanted, whether we wanted it on site, whether we wanted it in the cloud, whether our fiber could handle it, whether our broadband could handle it, what providers could offer us. And it was a competitive tender as well. That's from a governance point of view. This wasn't just we'll call RM up and get them in. We used 3 or 4 different companies and and took a view in terms of, what they could offer, what the long-term relationship was going to look like. Was it something where, they would just give us 100 laptops or whatever it was and stick in some new fibre and then walk away and we'd have to wait for them to come into support? Or was it somebody that we could develop a long-term relationship with? And it goes into a bit what Kelly was saying and Sharon in terms of having bits of this and bits of that. It was a case of, we could refresh and we have a plan for in 3 years' time where it will get refreshed again, or and we could tailor that, whether it be 2 years or 3 years, and have a look at all of those things. So it was how we develop that long-term relationship with the provider, because that's really important as well, because they effectively become your off-site ICT manager, which you're not really paying for, and that's something you have to have the trust in the people that you're dealing with, to be able to put all your eggs in that basket, and they really did develop that trust, I think.
And we had lots of long conversations, before COVID, before the lockdown. And, and I'll be honest with you, at the time, RM wasn't necessarily one of my first points of calls. So we've worked very hard with RM to decide exactly what we wanted and actually get that trust back. And to me, it's the whole package that we're receiving, rather than have providers that give you the internet, somebody else doing your technical, somebody else listing your equipment. We have one provider that supports us with everything. And that partnership has got stronger and stronger over the year. Obviously, with COVID coming in, the position we were in last March during the first lockdown with our IT equipment to the position we were in January is completely different. And the experience that our children have had for remote learning has been transformed by the use of the ICT we have now, the availability, the way that the teachers are able to work.
I could pick up on that. RM didn't have the best reputation when we first reached out to them, did they? We had they had some old built-in PC stuck in a corner somewhere that didn't work properly, and it was very an apprehensive jump. But actually, the service has changed now, and they're not in that build your own IT style space. It's very much HP laptops and smart touch boards and things like that. It's a different company from what we experienced a long time ago. From touching from parents' perspective as well, the teaching is a massive step change from where we were. Delivering on Class Dojo or things like that. Printed sheets that children have to fill in to be able to watch a live lesson and talk to teachers and really have a teacher in your home with you. It was massive improvement. So I can speak from that perspective too.
Yeah, I think from an RM point of view, we realised that we had to be agile and move with the needs as schools have to do on a regular basis, and that's been a real big sort of learning curve to us as well, is to be able to adapt and to take the technology and leverage it, and a lot of that is educationalist. And it's interesting how you mentioned the devices as well. Kelly's just popped off for a second, but the kind of what we went through a lot of iterations, a lot of video calls. In fact, we're all pretty much experts, aren't we, now on the old video call? It's a shame we haven't got our backgrounds. For those that aren't aware, Eliza's a bit of a dab hand at Minecraft backgrounds, and to the pupils, they actually believe she lives in Minecraft world, which is fantastic. But for the students, what we had was a device that was lovely. It did a flip, so it turned into a tablet. It had touch screen and was a normal keyboard. And a bit that was of interest to me is, do you think that makes a difference, having that sort of more modern technology? Does that engage the pupil more, do you think? Or
absolutely. For some of our younger children, they were used to using the iPads, but to have a very robust, quite small tablet that they could fold and use it in tablet form, turn over again, and then use it as a computer and a laptop has been fantastic. So it's the same, because the younger ones tended to use the iPads more and the old ones tended to use the laptops more. Now they have the same device, whether they're in reception or in year 6. And again, that they're independent skills. And what I'm seeing now is children from the age of 4 to the age of 11 being able to go get those devices, log on, and everything that they need is there. Whereas before, you were there having to help them with the different devices. One would work, some would take forever to turn on. We don't have that problem now. It's instant for the children. And hopefully you'll hear from some children in a little bit anyway and tell them firsthand.
And how are they supporting our SEND children, Eliza? Because I know we're using some of the interesting technologies from that perspective as
Absolutely.
well.
Immersive read has been amazing, and the dictation has been amazing. And the children, you know, some of those children who have really struggled to get things down, they're now able to press the recording, do their recording, and then it will type it up straight away. And then they go back over and then edit. So actually it's opening doors for those children who do struggle. And there's got so much more opportunities, I think, the ICT got now than we ever had before. And actually, teachers' confidence. I think we can't underestimate that we've all been on a journey with this. And I think the biggest impact is the fact that everybody started from the same position. We always have those teachers who are a little bit more technically advanced, and then you'll have some of us who are like, oh, I'm not really sure, but actually we were all on the same journey together. So everybody was invested, right from teaching assistants, the ladies in the office, the governors. We've all been on that journey together with the students as well, which has meant that everybody's really invested in all of the software that we're using as well.
It's about really getting that buy-in at the start, isn't it? Because if you don't get the buy-in from all the stakeholders, whether that's teachers or governors or business managers, office staff, all of those things, then it just doesn't work, because everybody has to appreciate the power of what you're trying to do. And we acknowledge it's a big change, and for a lot of people, it's difficult to be able to embrace that. But it's worth it when we get there, because it makes your job and your life and everything else simpler, because you haven't got all those hassles that we talk about, moving between sites and flexibility. It's so much greater now.
Guys, would you mind if I just jump in with a very quick question on that? Just as you were talking around the building the teacher confidence and getting that buy-in, can you just give us a little bit more insight into how you got that buy-in and how you brought your school community with you? Because that is such a challenge for schools, isn't it? In this, it's not just about the physical setup. Getting that buy-in and that confidence there makes or breaks this, doesn't it? And I just would love to hear how you engaged with your stakeholders and got that buy-in and confidence across from all your different perspectives, because I'm sure you've all had your own personal journey on that. I think that would be really great for the audience to hear.
I think for me, it was very much where are we and where are we on our journey? And in talking to staff, I could see that some staff were quite hesitant and had only really dabbled. Other staff were straight up there. I think it's very much, this is the journey we wanted to go on. We talked about our vision for our curriculum. We talked about where we want to take these schools. And Penny is very, very articulate and very, very into the IT, and you're a bit of a champion, I think. And what we tried to do is we tried to get some champions within it to help drive it, because there's no point in me driving it. It needs to be the guys on the ground.
I think you're right. I think you have to have people that are willing to just go with it, because then what they do is they help other people who are a bit more hesitant to see that it's not so scary. I think people buy into something when something works. When something doesn't work, people don't buy into it. So I think by certain key members of staff demonstrating how it could work and how it works successfully, and obviously we're talking a little bit about what those main kind of advantages have been for us as teachers. I think when people see that something is easy and that it works, people naturally buy into it.
I'll agree.
We've got to bring along your business managers. Well, exactly what I was going to say. Sharon jumped in. Yeah, that's the key to all of this, because if you haven't got the money and the business manager doesn't want it, then you're buggered anyway, quite frankly.
But I think as well, a lot of it is, yes, it's the confidence, but it's getting the infrastructure right. I think that's imperative, because whereas people before probably, I won't say that they weren't clued up on IT, it was the fact that they was fed up of things not working. So literally it's like 2 people have logged onto their laptops. It's taken them 15 minutes to load. We're now into a lesson. This has now gone wrong. And I think it's getting that background right, it's getting that infrastructure right, it's getting that new equipment in, because once people know that actually if they open up a laptop and it will load within seconds, and actually it will connect, we can do this, they're more confident to give it a go. And yeah, the money side of things is obviously always a massive strain, isn't it? But it's seeing about the best value of that, really. I would say it's about the best value. And it is getting that infrastructure and the equipment right for people to use. That's what I would say on that.
From a governance point of view, it's about demonstrating the value that what is a high outlay is going to have on the curriculum, and how do you measure that, and what does it look like? And obviously that involves the head teacher and school leads and things actually helping you to demonstrate that, or helping governors to see what difference it will make and what they can be done. It's not just we're typing up some words that somebody's written on a blackboard anymore. It's about how you're going out and researching things, how you're typing things up. It's learning new skills for the future, because whatever way we look at it, it's technology and all these things are going to be the new way of business and learning going forward. And as you go into high school, and we must have our children equipped, especially when they leave school, primary school, to be able to go into high school and be able to have those skills ready and not be the ones behind because we haven't given them the right tools to do the job.
Super. So we've actually got quite a few questions coming in the chat. Would you mind if I pick up on a few of those now, team? Is that okay? So first one I'm going to go to is just picking up on that buying point. So the question was from Simon. So it said, so this is predominantly directed to you, Dan. Obviously, welcome to all to contribute. Do you think that that it helped that you got quite IT literate and hence understood the benefits of an IT strategy and what that could bring to the Federation, and how that might have helped support with getting that buy-in from the governors that could have the same background? So do you think your IT literacy helped to get that support and buy-in from the governors?
It does help to be articulate about it, absolutely. But what I will say is that RM were very supportive about it, and actually, they gave you enough information that if you weren't, you could have presented that in the same direction, because I'd say some of the teachers aren't necessary, and I wouldn't say probably Eliza would mind me saying she wasn't exactly the most advanced in it when we first started, but they could explain to Eliza what things meant as I could. And it's about being very clear what the strategy is. You don't need this. It's like curriculum. We don't necessarily know what the curriculum is, or how it's taught rather. But what we need to know is what its impact is.
What's the impact and benefits?
Bring I would say bring somebody with you from the IT company, for instance, and let them articulate it for you and give you an impact, or work with you, brief you beforehand to bring that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I hope that answered your question, Simon, and helped. Another question here from Sam. What do you think are the main benefits of fully adopting a cloud solution across the Federation of Schools? And how do you think that this has changed the future for the way that you work across those schools? I know we've picked up on some of that, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
I would definitely say the word collaboration. Definitely the way that my teachers plan and support each other across the Federation, and everything is put in the cloud so teachers can access each other's planning. They're constantly sharing documents. Teacher workload, I think, has really not halved, but I think it's been enhanced by having a cloud-based system. In terms of the children, access things on the cloud and being able to remotely access them, whether at home or wherever, and also the fact that the children in the different schools are able to collaborate more on the same thing, even though they're not in the same building. So for me, I think the cloud has opened up so many doorways and has actually helped staff think more strategically, more across the schools rather than just in their individual schools. So I think every layer of management, teaching system, everybody has been affected in a really positive way by having access to everything on the cloud.
And I think it's from a governance perspective, it opens doors up from that as well. We can start thinking creatively. We start doing book walks and things like that. Like, seeing the lessons in the cloud really, and being able to go into teams and see what the kids have been learning, rather than having to go into school. And you can only go once a month or something because that's all people can fit in. You can start to see things developing more frequently as a governor, and more effective governor monitoring. By having it all in the cloud. So there are, I think, and we're looking at different ways we can develop that. You can always do live learning walks, walk around the school, because all the IT and the broadband and everything's all in there. It's not flaking out. We don't get IT, we don't get Wi-Fi in that end of the school. That style of style anymore. I stand in that corner, I'll definitely get Wi-Fi.
I was actually going to ask earlier when you were talking, whether you've all got like a personal wow moment where you've kind of gone, oh my God, like I can do that now. Like what's that look like for you?
Mine's been able to walk into a school and actually use Wi-Fi. That's my wow moment. I can actually get on Wi-Fi. That's it. I'm sold now. That was my only requirement.
I did something as simple as being in one school and printing stuff out that gets sent to another school's printer. I know it sounds silly, but I was like, I've received it. They're saying, yes, it's coming through. Oh, here's my visitor. Well, I'm enjoying it.
Oh, amazing. I'll start again. I will return to the questions in a moment. James, did you want to or who wants to introduce our special superstar?
Yes, thank you ever so much. I thought we very kindly were offered to get a real life perspective from a very important person. So Helena has joined us to give a student's bird's eye view of exactly what technology might be like, and you very kindly joined us from live from one of your lessons, which is very kind. So thank you ever so much for joining us. Hope you're having a good day this morning.
We'll get a bit closer, Helena, and then you can stand up. You get a bit closer, and then you can see.
Brilliant.
Great to meet you.
I think we should be honest that this is Dan's daughter as well, isn't it? So maybe we should get Dan to switch off the video.
I was going to say, should we switch Dad off?
Yeah, then we can
She'll be the topic critic.
Completely honest.
Some real honest answers.
We were only joking, Dad. It's gone.
I'll come back again. Mic off, camera off. That's it.
So as we've got limited time with the superstar, I'll maybe jump into to one of the questions if I can. So what would you say? What do you think of IT at the school at the moment?
I think it's very good. It's very enjoyable because it's just really good because you can get assignments up that the teacher's done, and that's just good to work with.
Oh, that's amazing, because that's with teams. So you get assignments allocated from your teachers, and you get that in your teams, and you're able to work on that. That is brilliant. And what's one of your most favourite things that you've seen the difference in IT recently? Is there something in particular you like?
I really like that you could talk to your friends on Teams.
No, actually,
collaborate. Right.
No, that is brilliant. That is actually brilliant.
Sorry, I think that was one of the things you enjoyed the most, and we got a lot of feedback from the children, is that during the second lockdown, they were able to communicate with each other in a very safe environment. So obviously we gave them a little channel on Teams for their discussion. They were able to talk to each other. They weren't able to video call each other, but they were able to talk to each other. They really enjoyed keeping that contact with their friends through the lockdown.
Well, the best bit is that they didn't know the teacher was also reading it though.
Yes. That was a fun.
Brilliant. And let's think of one more question while we've got you. So we were talking earlier on that you've got some new devices, because you used to have your iPads and you still got some of those, but you've got these new student devices. What do you honestly think of them? Do you like them? Do they help out?
I really like them. They're just really good.
Is there enough of them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
and there's a lot,
Wow.
and that's the difference, I think. You're not just all sharing one now, you're able to go and get one and use it. And telling it in school, obviously you were using it in remote in lockdown. How have you then started using it when you're back in the classroom now?
I've been using it the same, but a bit differently because obviously you're in the class.
Okay. What the teachers are doing is the children have learned so much independence in using the IT and the software that the teachers now are still continuing to set some of the foundation subjects and some of the work that the children then can do independently and access the classroom. That's right. They go off, they get the computer. And I don't know, Mrs. Lee, if you want to say a little something about that they do.
Yeah, I mean, the independence of our children is just amazing. So what we tend to do now is I work with a team of three other teachers who all have the same class that I do across the Federation. So we all plan separate sessions and then we pop them in teams for each other. So, for example, one of Helena's teachers, Mrs. Fulford, she's really amazing at art. So what she does is she records herself doing a bit of a live piece of artwork, pops it into assignments into teams, and then as part of their independent learning, the children can then access that. I then don't need to do my terrible drawing on the boards. They've got an artist doing it for them, and they can access that throughout the school day or at home if they want to as well. And then, you know, another teacher who's got a skill in, I don't know, we've got a teacher who's just amazing at science, so he can record a little activity with his science head on, or my preference is for reading and writing, so I might put some activities on there for the children to access. So we're collaborating across with each other's teachers, but the children are also, you know, getting to access different teachers from across the Federation as well and access their work independently, which has just been, you know, fabulous.
That's been phenomenal. Thank you, Helena. Want to say anything else about the IT? Well,
I've got one other. This is a random. Can I ask one other quick question? This is a bit random. So, Helen, if you had to describe think back a year ago, so how you were using IT in the school, and think about today, if you had to compare those two things to an animal, say, sorry, this was random. What would you say? Like a year ago, our IT was I don't know, and now it feels much more like. How would you just, or a word, if a word's easier? Just sort of an animal might be fun.
Describe the IT last year was a bit slow, like a snail, and the IT this year was like really fast. You can't really describe something that's fast. Yeah.
I like. There you go. That could have gone horribly wrong.
A future marketing there.
Love it.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Thank you for your time. That's absolutely amazing. I'm just mindful there were a couple of questions from Rob, and Rob, we haven't forgotten you, so I just thought I'd quickly nip through these two for you.
Thanks, James.
The first question was, the way that we've been talking, are all 4 schools in the same Office tenancy or Microsoft tenancy? And the answer there, Rob, is absolutely they are. And the second question, which is another one, is he understands what the student devices are. We've covered that, but what did the staff get was the question. And so that was quite an interesting debate, but maybe I'll hand over to Kelly. So what devices did you get, and are they any good?
Well, we've got a slightly snazzy version of the children's devices. So we've got devices that they're like a ProBook. So they can be used as a tablet, just like the children's ones, or they can be used as a laptop as well. But ours are just slightly slightly more snazzy and maybe less robust than the children's ones, because we've got a version for the children that could be, I don't know, James told us that once they could be smashed against a wall apparently, but we haven't tried it, Eliza, don't worry.
Properly tested. And one thing I did want to kind of move back to with yourself, Sharon, we talked about starting afresh, we've talked about these lovely devices, we've talked about all of this beautiful wireless, but surely all of this comes at a cost, you know, and I think that's kind of an area we probably need to explore, especially from your point of view.
I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, and I think when we first started looking at costs and obviously getting some quotations from other companies as well, comparing costs. It was very hard for us in reality to compare to our current costs because, as I say, we was at the point of needing new servers, complete new infrastructure, new internet connections, new devices. So it was really compiling all of that together. And I think we was in possibly an ideal situation that we knew that we was in this situation that everything needed replacing. So therefore, let's start again. Let's look at this with fresh eyes. For us as well, it was, as I said before, it was best value more than anything. Yes, our costs before were lower, but they would have been lower because we needed to invest. And so therefore, as Dan said, we probably started looking at this a good 18 months before we actually went on that journey with RM. So therefore, that's when we come down to budget crunching, carrying forward, identifying what we needed, and looking at our expenditure and our funding streams to be able to manage that. I think with the 4 schools as a federation, that's where it had its benefit, because obviously we could spread the costs across the 4 schools, which makes a lot of difference. And obviously we were looking at this long term. We wasn't just looking at year 1. We was looking at year 1, 2 and 3. We knew our year 1 costs would be higher due to the infrastructure that was needed. And then year 2 and 3 would obviously be significantly lower once we'd obviously paid for all of the infrastructure. So as I said, again, it's very hard to compare, but equally, I believe that if we're looking at best value, then we've achieved best value within what we've done on the IT plan.
We've actually got a question in the chat, which is just picking up on some of that investment decisions. Are you okay if I drop that one in there quickly? So the question from Simon is, when making investment decisions, such as improving technology for the school, how important is it to improve the image of the school to attract new parents, or equally, I guess, in terms of your existing parents, that kind of school image perception? Is that
you've
how
got to look at the wider picture? Because as a business manager, my favourite saying is bums on seat is money in the budget, and we all know that. Obviously, from our point of view, we are very small schools. You know, one school at the point of the time when we was going on this journey had 42 pupils on roll. You know, so we are very, very, very unique and small schools. But yes, you know, you've got to look at this. You've got to look at your advertising. You've got to look at, because your it's a revenue stream, isn't it? Your pupil money coming in is a revenue stream. So yes, you've got, I mean, at the heart of all of this, at the heart of any decisions we make, are children. At the end of the day, we make these decisions not for our benefit as well. We make them for the children's benefit and their lifelong learning going forward. And I think that is always obviously within the very core of any decision making in expenditure on schools.
It's part of the bigger picture, isn't it? It's not just about having the best technology in the school. You've got to have good results. You've got to have well-rounded children who are useful and good people in society. Not just you've got most technology in the school and that word of mouth, I think, Eliza will talk about that probably a lot more than I can, but the word of mouth will encourage parents and pupils to stay and come to the schools. It's, you can throw any marketing out there if you like, but if your curriculum isn't good, your teaching isn't good, your students aren't nice people, then it's meaningless.
I do think it's a selling point in terms, Dan and myself both have children in the Federation. And for me to know that my child who's in year 6 is going to go forward into secondary school with that really good knowledge base and a secure understanding of computers and systems and how to access online learning. I've got a daughter who is in secondary school, and a lot of her learning, regardless of the pandemic, is online. So for me to know that my child goes to one of these really tiny schools that sometimes can have a misperception about our innovative thinking, to know that is going to happen for our children, I'm sure Dan will agree, is from a parent's point of view, is really, really fabulous.
Awesome.
And I think when parents come through the door, I say to them, you're coming through a building that's 1890, 17 when it's built, actually to a school that's very innovative, very forward thinking, blown away by the amount of technology we have in our little schools. Every child, it's 1 to 2 for a laptop. Just get a lot of schools. Actually, their access to IT provision is phenomenal.
Yeah, we've got quite a cracker of a question actually from Paul in the channel. So bear with me while I read this one out. Hopefully, I'll relay this accurately for you, Paul. So with some secondary schools, this is a kind of secondary school slant on there. Some secondary schools having limited access to IT suites and laptops within bubbles that were set up in the school. Some staff are encouraging pupils to use mobile phones for research and development of projects. How do you see the development of school resources in line with the use of handheld technology such as phones? Many pupils have access to smartphones, but are limited with their access to data. Do you think schools and pupils should continue to receive free data for pupils to access education platforms in the cloud via smartphones whilst in school? It's a meaty one there. Who wants to any views on the use of smartphones and resources and data to share there?
From a technologist point of view, for me, just to give everybody a bit more time to think of that very good question with two elements. Yeah. I think one of the things that we've been lucky enough for working closely with Microsoft and some of the other providers as well, the new content that's coming out, whether it be some of the web-based applications or some of the sort of Microsoft Office 365 stack, that's actually now written even for Microsoft Forms and stuff, so that it works on a mobile phone. And I think that's really kind of showing that. Another example, which is really good about sort of getting that information across to students, is Sway as well. And that specifically, depending on whatever device you've got, whether it be a tablet or so on, it adjusts itself, which is quite nice. So hopefully I've bought everybody a bit of time for that one.
Personally, the secondary school pupils do have access to phones. I think if it's used in a way to support them with learning, I'd fully support that. I think it's for secondary schools to look into how they can best utilise what the children already have.
I do think the data is an issue. My daughter is in secondary school and she used all of her data quite quickly this month because a lot of her learning, she was asked to use her phone, which I do think there's a real positive with it. But I think going forward, I think schools, we have to think carefully about that provision of data if they are using their own devices. Using Microsoft 365 is fabulous for that because I can use my phone, my iPad or my laptop. It's all on there, and the same will be true for students. But there is a data implication, I think.
But that's where the filtering comes in. We need to have, I'm all for giving them access, but it's got to be sensible access, managed access to the right resources. It's not so you can go on YouTube and use it. It's got to be about quality of service in terms of the data that's being provided, limited access, within the intranet of the school. That's going out and pulling off the right information from Teams or wherever it is. So there's a balance to be struck there, I think. But certainly, not giving them any access isn't the right approach. But luckily, we don't see many reception children with smartphones. So we don't have to worry about it too much down here. It has happened, but we don't have to worry about it too much. Erin.
Super. Thank you all, and thank you, Paul, for that question and all the questions that have come through so far. This has been great. Keep them coming. We've still got 10 minutes or so left, and we just need a few minutes to wrap up. So I don't know how we're doing with your hit list questions, James.
I've got a plethora of questions to go, but one that I did want to have, because I wanted to squeeze a Formula One analogy into there somehow. So to me, I think of schools, certainly the more I've learned recently is they are very much like a Formula One team. It's not just the driver, the teacher, there's so many elements that all work together as a finely tuned machine, as we saw just this weekend on the wonderful Mercedes victory. But moving back to education, Sharon, with your team, they are sort of in the centre of all of the schools. I'd like to how's the technology helped your team? Have there been any wins there for you and your team?
I think the wins. I always say that the school offices are the engine rooms, and if they fail, the school fails. And I'm a firm believer in that. I think from the admin point of view, the ease with the new technology, with having laptops which they can take home, they can use from home if they need to, their home working, which they have never been able to do before. And they are able to do that, has been a massive plus. We are developing within our team and learning more about the teams. I think possibly the teachers have gone ahead of us a little bit there. But with that is something that we are developing. And for us as 4 schools, we are able to work as one office sometimes instead of 4. So we're not literally completely doing things from scratch. If somebody's doing something, they're sharing it on Teams, it's there in the resources, it's there in the files. And again, even though Eliza said, but it's how silly it is, we can print and it can go to anywhere, which is a revolution for us. I think it's just, again, we keep using that word as collaborative and one team, but I think it's enabled the admin teams to be one team instead of 4 separate entities.
But also
even down to the telephones, wasn't it?
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go.
Did you hear the thunder?
Yeah, I've got a massive storm going on.
It's not the Silverstone track, man. No. Okay.
No, that's why I just had to get up and shut the window, because I was getting
technology holds up.
Yeah.
And also, Sharon, we have Sims that's hosted now, so we've
always had hosted Sims, yeah.
It just makes it easier for you. You don't have to be in one physical site to do all the bank returns and to do all the Sims. It's easier.
And again, that's quite an important point to make, with the fact that because we were hosted anyway, it made our switch over to the cloud-based obviously a lot easier, because we wasn't server reliant for our MIS systems. And again, that made life a little bit easier, didn't it? I think so.
No, I think absolutely, and we would be the first to say that's one of the major stepping stones, really, to making that move. If a school wanted to go server free, there's some pinnacles. There's the broadband, because that's your link, but of course that MIS piece is absolutely crucial, hosted or web based. Absolutely. A dangerous question, maybe, because there is no such thing, but have we seen a bit more work-life balance with the move in technology, would we say?
Yeah,
I think it offers a more flexible approach in terms of the fact that you can, for me, I've got 2 children that are at school. I don't have to stay now at school and get everything done for the next day. I can go home, or I can decide that I'm going to put aside an hour when I've got time to put aside an hour. Well, I know we've talked about printing from anywhere, but it is amazing. And so I can send, all of my work to the school printer. It's there for me in the morning, rather than me having to get to work, panic and get it all done. It is already there. So I think the work-life balance thing comes from that flexibility and that ease of access. The work-life balance also comes from that collaborative element. So I am no longer now planning all of my lessons. I've got 3 other teachers and we're all planning lessons and sharing things more. There's no longer emails pinging through. Everything now is stored in Teams. So there's the organisational factor just of that and of accessing things. So from that point of view, there is the work-life balance has shifted due to ease, collaboration and flexibility, I would say.
And even things like we had staff illness last week. I don't have to be worrying about what the children are covering. I can just access that team, go into the Microsoft, find out what the lesson plans are, because there are 3 other teachers that have planned it and it's all there. So that's already, just by that, the teaching assistants then were able to pick up from where the teacher had left off the day before and carry on with the planning. We've had times where we were able to have a teacher in one school deliver things to children in another school. We've had, with teachers having to work from home and having to shield, they're able to go online and still deliver lessons to their children. A year ago we weren't able to do that. So the whole infrastructure has changed the way we work. The balance has changed. I mean, remote learning has its own rewards, but also, you're constantly on live lessons and things. So, but for us, I think it's been revolutionary in that sense. And I know from my point of view, from Sharon's and from the teachers, we've just changed and shifted how we teach.
Brilliant. Lisa, have I got one more question? Have I got time?
I'm just coming back on. I think you have, buddy. I might have one as well. I think I just need 60 seconds to wrap up. I think we've got a few more minutes if everyone's happy.
Brilliant. Well, do you want to go first with yours and then?
Well, yeah, if you're happy. Mine was really around the future and what you're looking forward to most in the future, because you've been on such a journey so far and achieved so much in the last year. What does the next 12 months look like? What are you hoping and aspiring to over the next 12 months? Sorry, clanger to end with.
Fully embed everything that we've done. I want to continue to learn about some of the RM advantage that's coming out. Immersive technology is my next thing. As you know,
virtual
Dan,
reality classroom. I know.
Virtual reality.
Can't wait to see this.
Can come to us. So yeah, I think the fact now that staff are excited about IT, they can now see the advantages. I think if our next step is how else can we really enrich children's learning? And for me, the way that we're delivering lessons has completely changed. Gone are the days of teacher at the front, children all there. There's target teaching while you've got other groups of children independently doing work on using computers. So there's a much more quality of teaching going on in the classrooms and the independence of those children. So for IT, who knows, but definitely VR. That's my next step.
Yes.
Awesome.
You sort of skirted over it before as well, when you said about we have a teacher who's home at shielding and is live, doing a live lesson. I mean, historically you'd have had to have got a supply teacher in. Yet we can have, using the new technology, we can actually have a teacher from home delivering lessons. My daughter's in that class and they love it. They think it's great. You're watching the teacher on the screen right next to you, like we're all talking now. It's about as personal as you can get. And I want to see how we can develop that moving forward. If a teacher's off ill, how we deliver that lesson from a class on one of the sites to the same class, the same age group in another school. I think there's lots of interesting, exciting ways we can embed this, and it save us money that way if we haven't got to pay for supply.
Amazing.
So my last question, I'm in danger of overrunning, but there we go. If there was a message that you would give to another school that's poised on trying to make a decision, should they look at this, should they not? What would your sort of message be to anybody else?
I would say don't be scared. That's what I would say. Initially, when we first started looking at this, if I'm honest, looking at the costs all laid out, I nearly had a heart attack many times. And I thought, I don't know how we're going to achieve this, but do you know what? You can achieve it. So that's what I would say. Be brave and don't be scared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go and have a look at somewhere that's done it. Try and find somewhere that's done something similar and see how it's embedded and see the value that it adds to the curriculum. And that's, you know, how you will truly understand the benefits of it. Without having that vision, it's very difficult, or the understanding, especially if you're not that confident with IT. Yeah, speak to your providers, see what else they can offer. Go and see it live in action, because that's the way forward.
Super. Wow, what a great place to wrap up the session. I think I need to bring this to a close, even though I feel like we can't take up any more of your time today, because we so appreciate this is, you know, you're juggling this alongside the day job in the school today. So thank you so much for all of your time and input and inspirational views today. It's been really great, and thank you for the audience and your engagement with the questions. Everyone who's attended, in the next 24 hours to 48 hours, you'll receive an attendee pack, which will include the recording, a certificate of attendance, and of course a survey. And we would love for you to input into that survey so we can continue to make these kind of sessions relevant to you in the future. Stick around for the next session if you can, which is at 12:15, which is with the NSPC. So Kate and Helen from the NSPC are going to be talking about the impact of the pandemic on online safety and all the great resources that they have available. And final plug for another session later today as well, with Martin Pipe and Michael Oakes, which is at 4:30, and it's around effective technology strategy, where we're going to be digging deeper into how we can think differently in this new world. And look at our technology strategies for moving to the future, which you guys have summed up beautifully today. And I can't wait to hear more about your journey. Once again, massive thank you for everyone who's attended. Big thank you for everyone at Forest Fed for giving up your time today to join us and share that story. Thanks, Tebs, for beautifully hosting and comparing the session as well. And I think that's everything. Just thank you and enjoy the rest of the summit, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.